Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rising Sign Astrology. Today, we're going to be diving into the astrology of November and really getting right into how this is going to affect you by rising sign. We're all sort of settling into this new normal after this very dynamic eclipse season, and the astrology doesn't exactly let up as we move towards the end of the year and even into 2026. Right. Although Pluto remains direct in Aquarius through December, which keeps the pressure on long-term transformation, especially around systems of the collective, technology, power structures, etc., where it's going to be long-term until 2043. There's a lot of other planetary activity packed into these next 2 months. And the truth is that this wave of change doesn't stop when the calendar turns. It really carries us all the way into the spring of 2026 when we'll be fully entrenched in this sort of new reality. Now, November starts with a full moon in Taurus, which brings something to a head in your life tied to money, stability, or personal priorities, right? It's a moment of clarity where you see what needs to stay and what needs to go in this Taurus part of your chart. And right after that, Venus moves into Scorpio, right? So this will bring relationships or money matters to the forefront. They may feel more complicated, a little heavier, prompting you to seek honesty in this area. But it could also stir some tensions if that trust isn't solid, which we'll get into. Now, on November 7th, Uranus turns retrograde in Taurus, right? So this is going to push us to take one last look back at the changes that we've already made in this Taurus area around our chart, most likely linked to stability, and really to decide what needs some final tweaking or adjustment before 2026. We're going to have Mercury on the move going retrograde in Sagittarius on November 9th, as well as Jupiter turning retrograde in Cancer on the 11th. And this is really going to ask you to look inward about what truly feels supportive at home in your closest relationships, and the fact that Mercury's in retrograde can lead to misunderstandings in those areas. So just make sure to double check your details and take your time here and be aware of that energy. And then by the end of the month, Saturn goes direct in Pisces. Right. So any areas of your Pisces chart that felt stuck, right, since the summer are going to start to finally move forward again. You're going to see where your efforts are paying off or not. And then finally, right at the end of November, Mercury goes fully direct in Scorpio, clearing up any confusion or helping stalled conversations finally move ahead. So in today's video, as always, you can listen for your rising sun or moon sign, right? But I always do suggest listening based on your rising sign first, as it shows how these transits will impact you on a physical level, right, 3D level within the world. Then take a look at your sun sign for career purpose and your moon sign for how these shifts might affect you either emotionally or at home. And as always, if you enjoy the content and want to hear more, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button so you're alerted whenever I post new videos. And if you like what you hear, please drop a comment, give a thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm. And with that said, let's dive in and get started here. Okay, my Leo risings. So for you, November of 2025 is going to be a month where your relationships, your career visibility, and family obligations are all going to pull rather strongly on you, right? And because the sun is your chart ruler, right, the movements, aspects, and the shifts in houses completely set the tone for your forecast, no matter what the month. So follow along with that. So for November 2nd, you're going to have Venus in Libra squaring Jupiter in Cancer. And this is activating your third house of communication and local matters, your neighborhood, and your 12th house of rest and behind the scenes activity. So Venus is strong in Libra, and Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So both of these areas are happy and carry some influence regardless of the square. So while you may feel stretched between your daily commitments like errands, projects, your neighborhood, even your siblings, and your need for private downtime or reflection, with a little bit of energy here and focus, you can, make room for both or coming to, some sort of compromise that works for everyone. So this could look like postponing or rescheduling maybe a personal rest to handle more family logistics, helping to mediate a misunderstanding with a sibling, or just, spending more than you planned on a short trip or some, technology device like a phone or a laptop. But overall, the result is going to be one you're happy with. It's going to be positive, despite the square, I think. Now, on November 4th, Mars enters Sagittarius and opposes Uranus in Gemini. So this is pitting your fifth house of romance, creativity, your entrepreneurial efforts, even children, against your 11th house of groups, networks, right? Your dreams for the future. And this can be a little bit of a volatile mix, right? You may see tensions erupt in group settings or the collectives around you, your circles, that causes conflicts between your own plans for your own side work, your entrepreneurial business, children, even romance, right? And you're going to have to strike a balance between those and then the expectations of either organizations you're a part of, your audience, or your friend group. So this could look like arguing with a friend about priorities or dealing with disruptions popping out of nowhere with a group or a team project, or just facing sudden surprises around maybe your kids' schedules that somehow clashes with commitments that you made with your social circle. Uranus can make things feel sudden and explosive, so just be aware and try not to lash out. Now, the full moon in Taurus on November 5th lights up your 10th house of career, public visibility, and your status, right? Your public standing in this world. So you may see a work project come to a completion at this point. Your professional reputation may be highlighted in some way. You may reach a very public achievement or milestone or recognition at work. Either way, something is coming to a culmination or a conclusion in your 10th house of career. It can also mark even like a decision point about your career and your career direction, right? You may choose to move on from a role, or conversely say, no, I'm all in. I'm going to further solidify my standing in this organization. So it doesn't have to be negative. Now, on November 6th, Venus moves into Scorpio. And this is your fourth house of home, family, your emotional roots. And Venus isn't the happiest in Scorpio, right? So family relationships or home life can feel a little heavier this time, maybe with some old, hidden, buried issues resurfacing at this time. There might need to be tougher conversations about just the shared responsibilities at home. And you may face tension about your living arrangement with you or your parents or your family around you. It could also bring up repairs to your living place, your home, your apartment, whatever it may be. And it just, you may have to go forward with them, even though they're costs that you would rather avoid if possible. Whatever it is, it may be a little uncomfortable, not the end of the world, and just, try to work through it with patience. Now, on November 7th, Uranus retrogrades into Taurus, which continues in your 10th house, right? for one last pass. So Uranus has been, over the last number of years, reshaping your career path and your reputation, right, for years. And this retrograde period is the last before it leaves Taurus for good in 2026. So this is about a wrapping up period, right? It shouldn't be a monumental surprise, just sort of closing out this last chapter. So as it relates to your career and how you're seeing the public, you may need to revisit potentially sudden changes that pop up in your career at this time, or just have to rethink how you want to be seen publicly, or just what you want your career to be. So this could look like reassessing your current role, or maybe dealing with surprises in your career or your job, or even accepting a new job at this time, or saying, something, I'm going to stay here now or through the holidays, but I am going to prepare for a future pivot in terms of career. Now, on November 9th, Mercury is going to retrograde in Sagittarius, which is your 5th house. And then it's going to slide further back into Scorpio, your 4th house, on November 18th. So early on in this retrograde period, I would expect, themes of children, romantic partners, creative projects, even entrepreneurial efforts to face delays or need some form of review, right? And then later, when the retrograde moves back into your Scorpio 4th house of home and family, this is where possible miscommunication could happen, or revisiting old discussions may arise with family members or around the home. Now, on November 11th, Jupiter is going to retrograde in Cancer, highlighting your 12th house of rest, privacy, and inner work, but also spirituality and, what happens behind the scenes, whether positive or negative. The 12th house is the house of self-sabotage, right? It's addictive behaviors. So this retrograde period is more about review of these topics, right? It's about reflecting inward here. You may reconnect with spiritual practices at this time, or maybe reflect on past family ancestral patterns, or decide to revisit therapy or self-care, right? I think it's a chance for that inner wisdom that you built up with Jupiter, right, Guru in Cancer, to help guide your next steps. Now, November 16th, excuse me, I took a drink of water. November 16th, the Sun in Scorpio is going to trine Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn in Pisces. So this is connecting your 4th house of home, your 12th house of rest, and your 8th house of shared resources. So as your ruler, the Sun's involvement is going to make this total alignment feel even more supportive, right? Because a trine is a positive flowing energy. And because the Sun is your ruler, I think it's going to be even more key for you. So you might be able to receive family help with shared finances at this time, or maybe through talking to your parents or organizing household matters more, or the home, you're able to feel more stable emotionally, or foster trust in that area. Or you could just, gain more insight into how you're able to balance your private at-home commitments with your longer-term plans for the future that you're sort of thinking about behind the scenes. Now, there's a new moon in Scorpio on November 19th, and this is falling in your 4th house. So this is now beginning a brand new chapter around home and family. So this could mark the start of a move, a new renovation or household project, or even like just setting firmer emotional boundaries within your family and those dynamics. So I think overall, this is a positive. Any seeds that you plant now, within 6 months, you're going to see how this reset really is going to help you handle your home issues or your emotional foundation more intentionally. Now, on November 22nd, the sun, your ruler, is going to enter Sagittarius, your fifth house. So, with your ruler moving here, I think the weeks ahead are really going to highlight romance, children, creativity, your entrepreneurial efforts, and the energy should feel a lot lighter and more playful, right? This is Sagittarius. Um, so I think this is a positive. And with Mars also in this house, you want to avoid being impulsive in these areas, but definitely lean into the passion that could be there as well. Now, 3 days later, on November 25th, Venus in Scorpio is going to trine Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Cancer. Again, linking your fourth house of home, your eighth house of shared resources, whether they're physical, sexual, emotional, or financial, and your 12th house of behind the scenes, hidden areas, and rest, right? So even though Venus is not the happiest in Scorpio, right? It's in detriment technically. I think overall this trine is going to be pretty positive for you, right? You may find yourself in a position where you get financial help from family at this time, or you agree on new terms for shared bills or resources, or anything from a tax loan perspective, right? Eighth house. Or you just may find like a lot of peace through private 12th house conversations with people closest to you, your loved ones, your fourth house. Now, on November 27th, you're going to have Saturn turn direct in Pisces. So this is your eighth house, and this is happening right around Thanksgiving in the United States. So this is going to bring a lot of clarity around debts, shared finances, or joint responsibilities. And with Saturn here, you've learned this lesson, but you really need to set firmer boundaries in any financial agreements that you have, or at least recognize which commitments are actually realistic in order to maintain at this point. Now, by November 29th, Mercury is going to turn direct in Scorpio. And again, this is your fourth house. So you may now, with all of the confusion or delays that were brought up with the retrograde around family, your house, where you live, your home projects, all of this you're going to feel like is starting to clear up, right? The fog is lifting. So you may be able to finalize paperwork for a move, or resolve a miscommunication with a family member or relative, or just, be able to get those repairs or renovations that you were planning on moving again. And finally, on November 30th, Venus enters Sagittarius, your fifth house. So Venus is pretty neutral here to positive. So I think this is going to be really good for smoothing over any relationship issues that have surfaced around a romance, around children, even partners within an entrepreneurial effort. It's going to make creativity and joy and, leaning into your hobbies that bring you happiness flow more easily. And it's a really nice way to close out the month, especially one that's leading into the end of the year, the holidays, and has really demanded a much heavier focus on not only career, but also family, which is not easy because they're the most public and private parts of the chart for everyone. So with that said, good luck this November. Okay, well, thank you everyone for sticking with me through the entirety of this video and just tuning in today. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch or listen. That's it for today's monthly forecast. I think overall these last months of the year are really stacked with a lot of activity and a lot of planets that are just changing direction, but also changing signs. So it's not exactly a quiet finish to the year, but the point of all of this and all of this motion is to help you really recalibrate and set yourself up for what's ahead. And we end the year with a real sense of movement rather than closure, I think. And that's important because the astrology is pointing towards a very impactful 2026, right? When these changes that we've been feeling since summer of 2025 and also eclipse season really start to lock in. And by spring of 2026, you're going to be living in that new reality much more fully. So even though this end of year feels busy, it's also very much a bridge, right? You're closing these chapters out while simultaneously planting seeds that are going to define this next stage of your life and all of our lives. So keep that in mind. Enjoy the holiday season. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I really do wish you all a great close to 2025 and even better 2026. As always, thanks for being here. Take care of yourself this month. Good luck, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.